all the treasures combined in this dunya does not equal the Quran. And so this is the gift that Allah subhanahu has given us. So valuable is this gift of Allah subhanahu that He doesn't want us to keep it on a shelf. But the Quran, He wants us to read it, to study it, to quote from it, to refer to it, to be engaged with it, to act upon it. As the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The best of you are those who learn the Quran and then teach it. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wants us to share the Quran, wants us to tell others about the book of Allah subhanahu, to the point that Allah subhanahu wants us to understand the true authority of this gift, the true status of this guidance. Jalla wa ala said, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, la tuqaddimu bayna yaday Allahi wa rasulih, wattaqullah, inna Allaha sami'un alim. O you who have believed, do not be forward with Allah and His Messenger. Do not be forward with the verses of Allah subhanahu. Do not be forward with the statements of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Be mindful of Allah. Surely Allah is hearing and knowing. Being forward meaning we don't put our statements, our opinions, the statements of psychologists, the statements of scientists, the statements of doctors, the statements of any professional above the book of Allah subhanahu and the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wants us to use this guidance, the Quran and the Sunnah, to understand its authority, and not just understand its authority, but also He wants us Jalla wa ala to use it when we're confused, when we don't know what the right path is. Allah subhanahu said, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ إِن كُنتُمْ تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Allah subhanahu said, if you differ in anything, you're not sure what the right course is, then refer the matter to Allah and the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But who would do this? In kuntum, if you truly believe in Allah and the last day. These are actions of the believers for us to refer to the book of Allah when it comes to issues where we're not sure what to do. Not only that, look at the statement of Allah subhanahu when He said to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam regarding his da'wah, regarding his tabligh, regarding his conveying the message of Islam to the people. Allah subhanahu said, O Messenger, convey the message that has been revealed to you, the Quran and the Sunnah. وَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلْ, if you don't recite the Quran to the people, if you don't quote the Quran to the people, if you're not telling them the Sunnah that was revealed to you, فَمَا بَلَّغْتَ الرِّسَالَةَ, then you have not fulfilled your job. You have not conveyed the message of Allah. You are not doing da'wah. Da'wah is not about philosophy. It's about conveying the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But what's interesting is right after that, Allah subhanahu jalla wa ala said, Wallahu ya'asimuka minan nas, that Allah will protect you from the people. What's the connection? That is because when you quote the Quran, when you quote the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there will be resistance, there will be obstruction, there will come about people who will say, please don't quote the Quran, please don't mention the hadith, don't make me a sinner, don't mention the hadith, please. Don't tell me that ayah about riba, about interest. Don't tell me the hadith about selling alcohol. Don't tell me about that hadith about backbiting, gossiping, spreading misinformation, character assassinations, defamation, slandering. Don't tell me those ayats. Please don't quote the Quran or the hadith. Don't use the Islam card, brother. Don't use Islam. Don't mention the Quran. Stop using the Islam card. Don't put the hadith there. Let's talk about other things. If we're not using the Quran and the hadith, my dear brothers and sisters, what else should we use? This mindset is from someone who is suffering from an inferiority complex. This mindset is from someone who is suffering from an identity crisis. Sammakumul Muslimin. Allah subhanahu gave us our identity. You are Muslims. We submit to Allah subhanahu. We will quote the Quran. We will quote the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We will not compromise our love for Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam just because someone does not like to hear the book of Allah or the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu said, "Inna hadhihi al-quluba aw'i'atun fashghaluha bil-Quran wa la tashghaluha bi-ghayrih." Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu said that surely these hearts, our hearts, are like vessels. And he's comparing them to vessels because vessels can be filled. And so he said, occupy yourselves with the Quran. Make sure you're filling your vessels, your hearts with the Quran, and don't fill it with something else. This vessel cannot take any blends. It's binary. It's either the Quran that will fill it or something else. And this is why scholars like Ibn al-Qayyim have mentioned people who are obsessed with poetry, people who are obsessed with music and singing, that when that fills their hearts, there's no room for the Quran. These are the people, because of their negative gossip, their backbiting, their slandering, their attraction to negativity, they cannot accept and receive the Quran because their hearts are filled with negativity. And so, if it's filled with the Quran, then it will repel this negativity. It will repel evil. It will not allow it to come in. And so, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah says in Al-Ghatha, وَالسِّرُّ الْمَسْأَلَةِ أَنَّهُ قُرْآنُ الشَّيْطَانِ فَلَا يَجْتَمِعُ هُوَ وَقُرْآنُ الرَّحْمَنِ فِي قَلْبٍ أَبَدًا. Ibn al-Qayyim says that the essence of the matter, the secret of all of this, is that those evil statements or deeds are the Quran of shaitan. And the Quran of shaitan and the Quran of ar-Rahman cannot come together in a single heart ever. Ever. And so if a person says he's Muslim, but his heart is filled with the Quran of shaitan, this is nifaq. This is hypocrisy. This is a contradiction. And this is why Ibn al-Qayyim then continues to say, if this is not hypocrisy, then there is no reality to hypocrisy. The greatest hypocrisy is to say, I believe in Allah, I believe in the Prophet ﷺ, but don't mention hadith, brother. Hadith, brother, please don't make me sinner. Don't mention hadith. Don't mention ayah from the Quran. I don't want to hear it, brother. Please don't. That's hypocritical, my dear brothers and sisters. These kinds of statements, if we push aside the Quran, if we push aside the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then we leave the door wide open for deviancy, falsehood, and shaitan.